we're going to go on to our story behind the story segment. And in this segment, we like to talk about our guests, their background, maybe some of the projects they're currently working on, but specifically for Bekah, we want to talk about your ghostwriting. And obviously, in this case, we can't talk specifics about what you're writing, the title, like, and for who. We're not going to get into any of that, I promise, right? But just in general, from the ghostwriting perspective, how did you get into ghostwriting? Because you mentioned a couple times, like paying the bills and so forth. So I imagine it was a situation like that. What's your ghostwriting origin story? That's what I want to know.
It's also my villain origin story, let me tell you. Okay, well, no, this is a safe space, no judgment here. It was it's almost 15 years ago. I was a single parent and I needed to pay my electric bill. So naturally, I started hunting through the wilds, that is Craigslist, for gig work. And there was an ad that was like, I will pay $50 if you write a story for me. And I was like, okay, I like writing stories. I've always been a writer. So I answered the Craigslist ad and ended up writing the story. It took me to a part of the internet that I was not fully comfortable with and had to emotionally process later. It was some content that I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that that's what we were doing. But I wrote it, the check cleared, and I started a 7-year writing relationship with someone that I fondly refer to as the Colonel. And the Colonel has a singular niche interest, and I have written hundreds of stories for him. I have no idea and actually do not want to know what happens to those stories, but the check always clears. And then he started passing my name on to some friends that required different content that was a little bit easier for me to write. So it's going to be more on that spicy romance instead of erotica. Yeah. And then I moved into that and I started writing for myself. And then I built my ghostwriting in a non-traditional way. It was almost entirely word of mouth. It's how I still get my majority of my clients, because I prioritize long-term relationships with my clients. So I have people that I've written for 5 or 6 years now. I have a couple that I have written all of their series and things like that. So we have become close friends. I have written for my friends, and so that's kind of fun. But yeah, my villain origin story started with Craigslist, and that's how I discovered ghostwriting, and that I'm comfortable writing a wide variety of things. I do have boundaries, of course, but yeah, it was an adventure.
And so when did you start publishing your own? When did you start publishing your own books? I mean, you still obviously ghostwrite now, but like when did you kind of shift to being like, I can self-publish my stuff?
So I kind of did it concurrently. So it was about, I think it was like 2012 or 2013 is when I put my first book out. And I will say to everyone that my first book was objectively terrible, but I have learned a lot since then. It is not available for sale anywhere because I was like, no, I can't. We don't want it. But that experience was really fantastic for me as learning as a person, as a writer, taking classes and things like that. But at the end of the day, it was a shift that I wanted to do this as a business, and that's where ghostwriting provides a lot of stability. Whereas I have good income from my royalties, but I have a predictable income from my ghostwriting clients because we are booked out sometimes 6 months in advance with different projects for each client. So I like stability a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. So
yeah, so I just
go ahead, Kelly.
So are you working on multiple, like when you're doing ghostwriting and in your own projects simultaneously, those are all happening. Are you working like in a day? Are you shifting projects so that you are getting words in for each one? Or do you have like linear focus? This is what I'm working on for XYZ day, or how many Pomodoros or whatever. Like, are you kind of shifting your work? Because I have multiple projects. I'm not ghostwriter or anything, but I have multiple projects that I want to work on. But I almost am not sure if I should like flip-flop between them within a day, and how do you make that work when you have projects for clients and your own work?
I like to assign people days. So I have obviously my work with AutoCrit is separate from all of this, but I have my admin day, I have my marketing and data day where I go and like check on all my ads and, try not to cry about money going out the door and all that kind of stuff. And then I have I can say that I do ghostwrite a lot of romance. So I have my paranormal romance day, and I have my contemporary romance day, and then I have where I fit my own stuff in is usually at a specific time in the evenings is when I get to work on my stuff. But I kind of separate out my day based on that, and whatever the schedule for reviewing is with each individual client. So when I might have 6 projects going, but only 3 of them require regular input, and those people each have a designated day that we talk about their project on and stuff like that, so that I don't get them all mixed up. I need to have some level of organization, but I also need to have a little bit of chaos because that's who I am as a person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So ghostwriting can, for some people, be a bit of a controversial topic. Not so much. I think most people respect ghostwriters. I don't think that's the issue. But the issue is like, because I think most of the time when it comes up, it's some celebrity who published a book and everybody knows that it was ghostwritten. And that's a whole other ball of wax right there. But I imagine there are some really legitimate reasons why somebody would want or need to hire a ghostwriter. I'm sure with working with the clients you've worked with, like, who are the type of people who should work with a ghostwriter? And maybe there's some people who shouldn't.
Yeah, I do get asked that a lot. People sometimes they get really caught up on it's deceptive to use a ghostwriter. Like if you didn't actually write it, then how can you take credit for it? And everyone has to. At the end of the day, publishing is a business, and my books are a product. And a product is going to market, and it was created by me for a fair wage and a contract that gives, where I said my creativity has a price, and the product that I'm willing to give out for this has been agreed upon in a fair and ethical manner, and the person who is purchasing it is going to use it for their business. So to me, that there's not an issue there. People hire ghostwriters for so many reasons. Sometimes they have a very specific time-sensitive goal for publishing or specific content that they want created, and they don't feel for whatever reason they either don't want to create it, they maybe don't have the skills to create it, maybe they want it created faster than they could create it, or want it created with different skills to do that, so they'll hire someone to do it. Maybe I do get this sometimes. Others have written something, but they want it rewritten by a professional writer because they just don't feel confident or they don't like what it is. So they want someone to not just like do a full edit on it. They want someone to rewrite it. As far as who shouldn't hire a ghostwriter, like if you're going to propose something non-ethical, like, hey, I love this book and I want you to basically recreate it in a non-plagiarizing way, I'm not going to do that. If you are on a tight shoestring budget and think that hiring a ghostwriter is going to be the cheapest option you have to publish, it's not. Ghostwriting is not it's not an inexpensive thing. And if you can't collaborate, if that is something you struggle with personally, you probably are not going to work well with a ghostwriter because this is an extremely collaborative process.
Right.
So
I also imagine that somebody who is like ghostwriting is not it's not a shortcut, right? Mm-mm. And if you're an aspiring writer yourself, you probably need to put in the work writing the words yourself to get to the point you want to be as a writer, I imagine. Like ghostwriting isn't the path to become a better writer yourself. Although maybe you'd contradict that. I don't know. Maybe you'd have a different opinion on that.
I mean, unless you're going to go about it in a non-traditional way. Like I didn't have a portfolio when I started. I literally just answered a weird ad. But for the most part, if you want to be competitive in the ghostwriting space, you're going to need to show a portfolio of your work. Now, there's different ways you can do that. Now, I know people that use, and I've done this in the past, is I use my own lead magnets that I've written for my own pen names as they have to actually go download it from BookFunnel. So they have to so I get their email address. It's now mine if they want to look at my portfolio so they can see what I can do. and things like that. So I'm able to, that's how I show my portfolio. So if you are aspiring to be a ghostwriter and you've always thought like, I just want to tell the story, I don't want to deal with marketing, I don't want to deal with any of it, I just want to tell the story and I don't mind being told what that story will be.
Yeah.
Because you don't have creative control over everything.
Right.
Depending on your client, you could have creative control over nothing. So, then that could be a great way to get into it.
Yeah. My question, to clarify, I was thinking more like you hiring the ghostwriter as you're the aspiring writer. No, you're fine, because that was a question too. Like, because I could see how for some people that might help, like having to, you're writing because it's a job and that's giving you some practice that's going to help you become better. I guess my question was more like, if you're going to hire a ghostwriter, but you yourself are aspiring to become a writer, like you want to get to that place where you could write it yourself, you're going to have to do the work of writing those words yourself at some point, I would imagine. I don't know if you disagree with that or you have a different perspective on it. But
well, I mean, it depends on what kind of ghost services you're
sure.
doing. There are ghostwriters that will write it with you. You're still going to pay, so it's like you have an anonymous co-writer. So you're going to go chapter by chapter, and you get to learn from their experience and be guided through that. I don't personally offer that as a service.
Sure.
I'm mostly out of time. But that is definitely, like, there are people that do that can help you, and you can learn from that. You're going to pay quite a bit of money for that, but you could do it. But yeah, if your dream is to become a writer with your own work and your own words and publish under things that you have created, then I probably would not recommend initially starting out with a ghostwriter to creating that, because you need to develop your own voice. You need to develop those hard skills of writing. You could definitely employ one maybe for a more in-depth review or to help you rewrite if that's part of your process. Like, I don't see that there's anything wrong with that, but I would encourage you to. We all have a terrible first book, or we all have a terrible draft where you're just like, I had to get words out, and that's part of the canon event. Becoming a writer is understanding and accepting.
Yeah. No, I had my very first book that I ever wrote got lost in a hard drive crash.
Oh no.
And then I proceeded to rewrite it 2 more times. It was a blessing in disguise. It really is. You know, I was young at the time and stupid. And so it was, I committed to it and I rewrote the thing twice and it turned out better. I learned a lot through that process. But yes, you're right. Like, everybody goes through that, writing that first book, and it's ugly. It's not usually pretty. Yeah. How do you know if you're thinking about giving ghostwriting a try, being a ghostwriter, right? So some people in that position, like, how do you know if that's a good fit? Is it just something you've got to try for somebody? So, like, do a gig like on Fiverr or something, see if you like it. Obviously, maybe avoid Craigslist, right? We can learn from Bekah on that one.
I would not go to Craigslist now. Please don't put yourself through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always try to see. I think you need to ask yourself some hard questions. Are you truly comfortable with the product of your brain? This creativity, are you truly comfortable with someone else taking credit for it? I have watched books that I have ghostwritten go viral on Book Talk and not me. I get paid a one-time fee. But I've watched it make other people an obscene amount of money. Are you comfortable? Is that something that you can watch happen? Because you will never be acknowledged. You will never, ever be able to claim that work as your own. You have no rights to, when you sign that contract and you say, I've created this for you, you are giving them that creativity out of your brain. Is that something that you are willing to part with for a price? And for a lot of creative people in my experience, the answer to that is no. The answer to that is, it came out of my brain, it's mine, which is fine. If that's the case, ghostwriting is probably not for you. If you are like, I don't know if it's mine or not, because I have a friend who got into it. She's like, I mean, I feel possessive about it, but I also like paying my bills. And valid, she can compartmentalize that. This part of my brain creativity pays bills in a different way than the books that I publish for me. So you need to be able to differentiate that. You need to ask yourself, how good are you really working with difficult people sometimes? What are your people skills? What are your client skills? And what are your project management skills? Is your process so chaotic that you can't describe it to other people? because that's going to probably be a problem for a lot of clients. They want to know regular updates. They want predictability because they are investing money in this, and you need to also provide a service. I would say, let's see. Yeah, if you like telling stories though, and you don't really care what happens to the story afterwards, you just enjoy the process. You just love story and creating it, or you can work off of a limited prompt and that just excites you. This could be fantastic. This could be the best thing you ever did, because you get to do all the best parts and you don't have to deal with anything else. Like, you get to do the fun part, and then it's their problem to sell it.
Yeah.
You got to create it. So if that's something that excites you.
In those cases where something you wrote for somebody, and obviously we're not going to drop specifics on it, but at the very least, when they come back for the next book, is there maybe a little bit of an upcharge? Like, hey, this one worked out really well for you, like, or I imagine at some point your services become, and that's with any client-based service, at some point you have to raise your prices, and that.
Sure.
How do you adjust it? Are you able to use some of that material at all? I imagine not, because you can't tell prospective ghostwriting clients, hey, I also wrote this for so-and-so and it went really well. So that's got to be tricky.
It does. Yeah, it does get tricky. I mean, I do have some, I have client references, so they're able to, I have, all except for the kernel, I have asked for a reference from that they are able to reach out to them via email, and they're happy to talk with my prospective clients about what my process is. And if it's up to them, if they want to share what book was ghostwritten for them, and that keeps me out of it. And it also tends to be very a little bit easier for my clients because I'm not involved in that process. They can reach out to someone else. Yeah. And
I imagine that's anonymous too, so your client isn't giving away, doesn't have to give away like their personal information to the name they published under or anything like that. Unless they want
you're not
to.
required to do anything like that.
Yeah. No, I could see that, because that's a really, it's just a tricky way to have to market yourself when you can't, like, because usually you have some sort of, I don't know, do you, the books that you've published yourself under your own pen names, you said you use the reader magnets, the lead magnets as your portfolio. So those, your clients, I imagine, they know, okay, they know your credentials as far as that's concerned. So that maybe gives you some negotiating wiggle room there to say, hey, yeah, I'm a USA Today best-selling author. You've got those sorts of things to leverage. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So, and they can see the different genres, because I do have lead magnets for all the different genre pen names that I have. So they're able to see, I ask them as part of the intake, like, what are we looking at here? Like, what are we trying to write? And then I can respond accordingly with, like, here's an example of rom-com, for example, and this is the style that I write in naturally, but I can match XYZ style if you want me to write in a different tense, for example, or something like that.
Sure. Are there genres you just, other than maybe some of the unethical ones or the questionable ones, are there just like some genres that you won't touch? Like, yeah, I don't like thrillers, I don't write those, or I don't write fantasy, this, that, or the other?
I mean, I do specialize. I would consider myself a romance specialist, but I don't like horror to read because I get scared easily. So I have never been asked to ghostwrite horror, and I would probably say no. I do write the whole spectrum of the spicy spectrum in romance, so I can write closed door versus, extremely open. But I do like. Yeah, I have some things that I don't write. I have a list of I guess you could call them trigger warnings, or things that if you're intending for this to be in your book, I'm not the person to write it. And I do have a wide network of people that I know that ghostwrite, so I can often refer for things like that and say, hey, I'm not, like, there's taboo things that I'm just not, that's just not my jam.
Only for the kernel?
No, his isn't taboo. It's just annoying.
Okay.
After this many years, like, okay, I don't know how many other ways we can do this, but sure. Like, but some people do give you an entire story Bible. Like, some people will say, this is what I want you to write. And I actually find that to be very challenging at times, because everything's already plotted out there. It's like a paint by number situation, right? Like, all of my characters. Here's the story beats. Here's the tropes. Here's what needs to happen in chapter 4. Here's the inciting incident. Here's story questions. All of this information. Some people love that. Other people like me find that to be kind of stifling. So, yeah. So, yeah, horror is a big no for me. I'm not great. I don't know if I do well with like religious fiction or anything like that, or epic or hard sci-fi. I don't know how to write hard sci-fi. I can write an alien romance that is science fiction as well. Like, tell me about your aliens that live in the ocean. I'll write
hard
it.
sci-fi. You need to have letters after your name usually, just so you sound like you know what you're talking about. Like it's you have to get the science piece of it right, and that's a genre that requires some knowledge on those subjects. So yeah, I don't.
Yeah. And certain historical time periods, I just don't have the time to do the extensive amount of research. And historical readers really want the details to be correct, and rightfully so. It's an escape, right? We're spending our time reading this. And I usually say no to those projects because I don't have the time to research it properly.
Right.
Now, one question for new ghostwriters starting out. How do they decide, because we don't want to lowball, don't ruin it for everyone else in lowball. How do you advise that they determine what their rates are? And all you have, let's say your only portfolio is your own work. You're just getting started. Do you go in and lowball just so you can get a few clients, or do you stand firm on this is what I'm worth? What do you do?
That's a really hard question to ask. I want people to, you're going to get, let's say you're on Upwork, or Upwork's a very popular one. You're going to get offers for 1 cent a word. You're going to have people asking you to write a 3-book series for $800. And I'm going to encourage you very emphatically to say no. You're going to have to set your pricing based on, I would definitely do some hefty research into, especially if you're going to genre specialize, to see what those common rates are. I would make sure that you don't lowball yourself so much that you're essentially working for, pennies on the hour. Think about how long it takes you to write a book. If you're a fast writer, like obviously if I'm writing 180,000 words a month, I can get through quite a few projects quickly. It's not going to take me as long as if you are like, I write 500 words a day. It's going to take you a while to finish that. So think about how long it actually takes you. Think about what the outcome you want to have. Some people go flat rate per project. Some people go per word. I would encourage you to research. You can look at the Ghostwriting Association too. You can look at that. You can ask people what they charge. I would recommend doing your research on that one. I can't advise like a certain starting point for each person, but I can tell you there's no way I would accept a job at 1 cent per word.
Right.
Please don't, you guys.
That's painful.
Yeah, like value your time, please. As a freelancer, it can be so, especially as you're just starting out, it can be so tempting to take whatever is offered to you, because especially if you're like, I need the cash. And if that's your strategy, then go ahead, do what you need to do to survive. That's your ultimate first goal. But please value your work and value your time, because it's worth it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know if that helps.
I think it does. I think it does. Like having some standards, but and being realistic about your time frame, that it takes a lot of time to write those words, and your time is money. That's what the whole point of your business of being. If you're going to be a ghostwriter, it's business.
Yeah, exactly. Do not do a single thing without a contract.
Yeah.
Do not do it. If some people are like, oh, I'm gonna PayPal you. No, not until it's a contract. And there are some benefits using like Fiverr, Upwork, because they have to put their money in escrow. If you're worried about that, then you don't have to be bill collector because the money is already in there.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.